A Swift Kick in the Ass, episode 78.
All big changes start with a swift kick in the ass. Join the journey of lifelong friends, John Curren and Tom Stewart, as they make conventional thought bend over and take a boot to the keister. Warning, listeners may notice a force equal to or greater than needed to get your ass moving. A swift kick in the ass, living life on your terms.
Welcome, I'm Tom Stewart. I'm joined with my lifelong childhood friend, John Curren. And today's episode, Face Your Fears, Sucker. Welcome to the show, John.
Thanks, Tom. Welcome to you as well.
And this is we kind of tricked them because we just did an episode on courage and we didn't want to have two back-to-back courage, but we wanted to elaborate on last episode, right? On how to build your everyday courage.
Yeah. And, we talked about that on the last episode a little bit. We'll talk about that some more here, but, the title really does have some relevance, and that is, you are a sucker if you're living in fear. Living in fear is really, it's no way to live. And the sooner that you can move beyond that, and the better. I have been there. I've done that, and it's a horrible way to live. And what we're here to tell you is that you have the power within you to change a lot of that. Now, granted, we can't change everything, and fear is what keeps us alive. And there are certainly things, dangers and threats that are real concerns. So it's not trying to downplay that. But if you generally fear things that are going on in the world or in your life, that can just wreak havoc with you, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we see this in the news right now with obviously with a new president. And, we see protests and we see all kinds of things. And a lot of it stems from fear because we don't know what the new president is going to do. And that scares a lot of people, and it rightly should. But besides that, John, even the small, minute things that every day, like I was telling you before we got onto the show, that I'm buying a new car and I have to because my daughter's car broke down. Well, you have that fear of, oh my gosh, I'm going to take on another payment. I've been trying to avoid this, and I got the fear I got to call someone to try to figure out what am I going to do with the old junker that I have, and how do I transfer the tag and all this other stuff that goes through your mind, makes you hesitate before you even pick up the phone. And I think that's natural. I think a lot of people feel those feelings.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you. Fear of the unknown is probably one of the biggest reasons for fear that there is. You simply don't know, and that causes anxiety and fear. It is scary. And really one of the best ways you can go about doing that is start educating yourself. If you're looking to buy a new car, you should be looking at your bank account or your state, or maybe talking to a bank to get a loan, if you need that. But even if you're talking to a bank to get a loan, you want to make sure that you're not, overextending yourself either and putting yourself in greater threat or greater danger. So part of confronting your fear and facing your fear is to educate yourself, really.
Well, I think that's what, in my circumstance right now, is besides making a decision, an important decision to buy a big payment, big purchase like that, is a time constraint, because losing one vehicle and having the engine blow out on my daughter's car, and she's in the middle of her semester at school, and my work hours, my wife work hours, we can't shuttle her around. So, we have to make a decision relatively quick. So that, I think that amps up that fear.
If you think about it, so many people, we see time and time again examples of people who are living in fear, especially now with the new president. And a lot of people are scared and concerned, and rightfully so. But, I was thinking about this, and in some ways, isn't it easier to fear things and to be scared of it rather than facing your fears? Because once you begin to face your fears, you recognize that there are choices to be made. just like you, Tom, in confronting your situation with buying a new car, um, you're trying to figure these things out. You're trying to educate yourself. Who do you go to? How are you going to pay for it? Um, figuring out all these details. That's a lot of work, honestly. And let's just face it, a lot of people today try to avoid work. They try to avoid making decisions. So to me, I think in some ways, fear is kind of living a life of fear. It might seem easier in some regards.
Well, that's, I think, what leads to procrastination. I mean, how many times do people put things off because they know they're scared of the result of what will happen if they even attempt it?
Yeah. And also, I think too that we have fear based on our past experience. Like I remember, taking some chances at work. And when I say chances, I mean taking a stand at work, like for the right reasons, because I felt it was the right thing to do, and being very vocal about that, and then having it kind of bite me in the ass later on. I think we have experiences in our life that teach us to fear certain things.
Well, let's face it, it keeps us alive. I mean, there's a reason. I mean, but what happens is it overpowers us, and when we become, ruled by fear, that's bad news.
Yeah, but I guess the point I was trying to make is that just because you got bit once, doesn't mean you shouldn't try again. You should try to learn from that experience, and of course, you don't want to get bit again, but you can take steps and learn from that experience and move on and make a better decision next time. But a lot of people don't even try. I think they fear what happening again.
It's we always relate things back to our childhood. And I think this, talking about fear, can you remember the first time that you asked a girl out?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I asked her out.
Well, I can. I can remember the hot cheerleader chick that used to live behind me, Christina.
Yes.
Yeah, I went over. I finally summoned up the courage. She was beautiful, and I remember I went over, knocked on the door, and hey, asking, huh?
You combed your hair?
Yeah, I combed my hair. I had hair then. And I asked her to go to Swenson's, which was this ice cream joint around the corner, and she promised, "Oh yeah, that sounds great." She never showed. Oh. I could have let that, derail me, but as you know, that didn't derail me. And I've had many of those along the way. When I asked the girl, this one, I was in band. I was in ninth grade. I had my saxophone in one hand, or like in the case.
Yeah. My
books in the other.
Right.
And I walk up to another girl. She was in band too, but I was asked her if she wanted. I think it was the same place. I think I asked her for ice cream. I didn't know many other places to go when I was 14.
There weren't that many places to go.
No, and so I asked her in the middle of the hallway. But my mistake was that I asked her like when there was a bunch of people around. So what did she do? No! And it was like, oh, I couldn't get out of there fast enough, man. It was humiliating. It was like, okay,
I had a great picture in my head of this girl running away, screaming, and you standing in the hallway going, like, with this clueless expression on your face, like, what the hell just happened to me?
And then I think I was going, I'm quitting band.
Well, so that was it. Yeah, that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
That and getting subject to I didn't practice a lot. I think you were in the saxophone.
Yes.
You played sax too with us. And remember, I think I got put towards like the last chair, and they made me push the bass player's amp around while we were marching out on the football field. So I was basically marching as I'm pushing an amp, and I was like, all right, I'm quitting. This sucks.
Was I playing the bass then?
No, it was.
I don't think you ever. That
it was
great.
Golden or whatever. Yeah.
I would have never let you live that down. I would have called you all sorts of names. If just to clue the audience and our listeners in, back in high school, Tom and I were in the high school band, and I in senior year I switched to the bass guitar, and we actually played the bass guitar out on the marching field, and we had this huge stack, this PV amplifier, huge, and a custom built cart, and had like several batteries on the back, and we'd put a freshman on it to push it. And Tom didn't do this to me, but there was a freshman, and here I am. I've got my bass. I'm in my band uniform, and I'm walking down the middle of the field marching. And this kid's not paying attention, man. And he just keeps going. And nearly mowed me over. I nearly just ate it, but luckily I caught myself.
That's what I should have done.
Oh, I was so mad. But fear does keep us alive, but it also really can hold us back. We talked about not knowing things, and one of the ways that we can help alleviate some of the fear is to educate ourselves and to sharpen our minds and senses. To really, if you feel fear but you're really not sure what you're feeling, take a look around you and think about it, and hopefully that it will come to mind. Hopefully it will come to light. And I think through this process, sometimes we can we can close our minds to certain possibilities and say, oh yeah, we're not scared of anything. I mean, I know I do this, I think this way a lot. And the truth of the matter is I am scared of things, but I'm too afraid to admit that to myself in some cases. So fear can hold us back, keep us alive, but it can hold us back. Can
I play a clip that I still have on my tablet from our episode of Fear? This is Rickson Gracie, one of the baddest ass guys in MMA back from like when it first started. He was undefeated. He's from the Gracie family that did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And this is him speaking about fear.
I believe intelligence and fear are very close together. Guys say, oh, I'm not afraid of anything. He's stupid, he's silly for me. It's something doesn't fit in my mentality. Don't be afraid. I'm afraid of everything.
He's afraid of everything. This is the guy that can kick anyone's ass, but he's being honest.
Yeah, and we said also during the last episode, it's worth repeating that you feel fear before you have courage. In fact, fear is something that helps to trigger courage. And what determines whether or not that courage comes or it doesn't is really all up to you. It's a choice to decide, are you going to stand up? Are you going to fight? Are you going to run? Are you going to assume the fetal position? Are you going to cry? Those choices are yours in how you address your fear. And when you start to take stands, even in just some of the smallest ways, even asking a girl out, which I think takes a great amount of courage, you are going to get knocked down. You are going to get hurt in the process. It's all part of the learning, but but what it does is it teaches you to get back up again and keep trying. And, eventually, Tom kept on asking out enough girls to where some of them actually said yes.
The more our motto was the more lines you cast, the more fish you catch.
Yes. And one actually married Tom and had his children.
How did I pull that off?
So if it worked for Tom, it could work for anybody. And I'm in that same boat too. Not just making fun of Tom. I agree. It is a numbers game. Now, kind of moving on into some of the benefits of incorporating, courage in your life. I want to talk about, owning versus renting. And you're going to think, how the hell does this relate to courage? And I'm really thinking about the ownership and the rental of our emotions and our thoughts. If we own something, it's legally ours. We can use it however we want. It's our responsibility. It's ours. We own it. The gist. If we rent something, it's not really ours, but we can use it, and we're not really responsible for it. We can just cut it loose whenever we want. I think fear kind of acts in that way too. We can take ownership of whatever we're feeling, and we can take a stand, and we can address that fear. To me, that in itself is courage, facing your fears and taking action. Or we can also rent our fear too. We can have kind of a temporary concern, or even rent a solution. I think like Tom, you were saying that you and your wife really can't taxi your daughter around. I mean, she's your daughter's an adult.
Well, luckily there's Uber, and that's going to help in the meantime. But we're trying to get this solution. I actually got approved for a loan already, just because luckily I had yesterday and a day off, and so I was able to take action and right away, instead of sitting around fearing, trying to wonder what to do and procrastinating. I was like, let's get it handled, and then pass it off to my wife. So over the weekend when I'm working, she can run with it, and it will be settled and be done with.
Yeah, and you took care of that, and I think that changes it, as you said, it does change your view. It makes you less fearful, and you have a plan, and you work the plan, and I think as you do that more and more throughout your life, you will build more and more courage and want to take on more and more challenges and face more and more of your fears. But you have to start small and build. I was thinking about we always talk about weightlifting on our show, and I was thinking about that analogy that I had about muscle building. If you're looking to build mass, then you want to work on the biggest muscles that you have, because if you double the size of a 10-pound muscle, that's 20 pounds. If you double the size of a 2-pound muscle, it's 4 pounds.
So here's the strategy, John. The gluteus maximus is the largest muscle in the body. You only train your ass, and then you look like a baboon. That'd be an interesting look. Like, you don't train anything else but your ass. Do a lot of squats. I guess your legs would get a little bit big, but you walk around.
You heard that first on the swift kick in the ass, because that's what you'll be getting, is your ass will be so big, and it will be red from people kicking.
And you'll be able to crack walnuts with it.
Yeah, that's real good advice, Tom. But you kill me, man. Making me lose
train of thought.
Yeah, lose my train of thought. Killing me. Anyhow, it'll come back to me in a minute.
It's called the Brazilian butt lift, man.
So back to my muscle building, technique. It really all depends on what you want to do with your life, and what fears you want to address, and what you want to stand up to. You need a plan in order to do that. And if you are not trying to build bulk and mass in by weightlifting, maybe you're trying to get more tone or defined. Your plan of attack is going to be different. If you're trying to build mass, then you're going to use heavy weights and low repetition. If you're going to build, if you want to be cut up, then you want to use lightweight and do higher repetition. Same thing applies really to our challenges and the things that we take on in our life. We need to make sure that we approach it in the right way. Otherwise, we're not going to get the results that we want. If we really want to slim down and and get cut up and have those 6-pack abs, then maybe bulking up and going for mass isn't what you want to do.
I think you've identified something, John, and I don't know if this is, right on topic, but, in my own workout program, I've always lifted and I've always been like, wanting to get heavier and bigger. And I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter how big you are or how many muscles you have. If you still have a layer of fat on you, it throws you off. And I was like, you know what? Well, I should be focusing on, doing whether it's cardio or some kind of form of metabolic training that starts burning fat, because I have enough muscle. If I just could see it, is all I need to do. So I made a commitment, and for the last 2 months, I've been going every day and doing, 5 or 15 rounds of 5 floors of stairs. And I'm starting to see results. And it's that I think but it's identifying where it is that you need to improve instead of always going to your old, I always went to my old standby. Okay, I'm going to bench and I'm going to do some, back and some arms, and it wasn't the right approach.
This, of course, we always go off on tangents on our show, and we do that to really prove a point. And I think that the story that you tell is just right on. You do need a plan. And this is what we're talking about, everyday life. Maybe you exercise, maybe you don't. That's really not the point here. The point is that if you want something out of life, you're not just going to automatically just get it. Things just aren't just handed to you. But you can get there if you take small, deliberate steps towards that particular goal. And to me, that's where the courage really comes into play. When we talk about courage, a lot of people will think about heroes and the heroic side of courage, people being rescued from a burning building or pulled from a wrecked automobile, saving somebody's life. That is courage, and that is heroics, and it's awesome. But we all have some degree of courage inside of us. It's part of our character. And what it is it's how we deal with our fear. Do we stand up to our fear? As a person, just generally speaking, as a character, or as part of your character, do you stand up to fear, or do you run away from your problems? I think that we all have this part of us, and courage is within all of us, but it's up to us if we want to develop that or not.
And John, it's a very personable trait, because often people that are very successful, you don't see their battles, their inner battles that they're going on day in and day out to get them where they want to be. And only what scares you. And oftentimes you won't tell other people. And oftentimes people don't realize that you have these fears, but you have to battle every day and use the everyday courage in order to overcome those fears to progress.
I like to think that everyday courage really keeps you grounded. And, staring fear just kind of straight in the eyes, it requires, it requires you to kind of stand the right way and looking fear in the eyes. You need to make sure your feet are just firmly planted. You got to have your game face on, and you realize that this game of facing your fear, it's not all physical. It's not just the steps you take. A lot of it is in your head.
Gosh darn it, people like me. That's Stewart smiling.
I guess you could be standing in front of a mirror and facing your fear. Al, talking about this, this is kind of it's a personal thing, and I don't really didn't really like talking about it for a long time because it really disturbed me. But
Are we talking about your pecker again?
no,
Oh, okay.
no, that's disturbed a lot of people. Anyhow, when I was a little kid, I remember I was crying, as little kids do. I was, in the terrible sixes or something like that. And I was crying, carrying on. And my father, we had this big mirror in our living room. And my dad picked me up in front of that mirror and held me up in front of the mirror while I was crying, red faced and just blobbering and making a spectacle of myself. And he would ridicule me in front of the mirror and say, "Oh, look at you, you little monkey. Look, is the little monkey upset?" And and it did get me to stop crying. But what it taught me at a very young age is to kind of suppress my emotions, which is not a good thing. Now,
that was the 50s mentality, and that was the area your dad grew up in.
Yeah. It was like, toughen up. And in a lot of ways that was very good. And it did help me. But when I brought it up to my dad, later in life, he had no memory of doing that. And he actually apologized for doing that. He saw it was wrong.
Oh, I thought he was going to grab a mirror and
you still look like a monkey.
Who's still a monkey? Suck it up, Buttercup.
No, I guess, but where this comes, why this is relevant to this conversation is that when we feel the need to stand and face fear, the best place really to stand is in front of the mirror, to look at yourself and face the fear within yourself. If you can do that, if you can stand to look at yourself in the face in the mirror, then you're off to a good start.
And if you want to change your body, go into the Target dressing room that have the mirrors behind you and take a look at yourself and go, "My God, that's what I've been missing all these years. I'm becoming a fat ass. I need to do something." No, that is kind of...
I heard there's a program on that. You have an ass like a baboon.
And it can crack walnuts.
But
you'll be the hit of the party.
It's fear. Whether we want to admit our fears or whether we don't, it really doesn't matter. If we want to do that, admit it to others. But it really does matter if we want to admit that to ourselves, and we want to take that on. Courage is a decision, and that decision is found in whether or not you want to take that stand and confront your fears and take action for it. And in doing so, I think what it often does is it removes the blinders that we have. It opens up the world, and we see the world in a whole new way. I learned a lesson a long time ago, and it dealing with courage and fear, and that is dealing with courage and fear in the workplace. I had some very kind of type A personality people that I worked with, and some of them you would really just consider them to be bullies. And bullies will try to manipulate you and try to make you feel threatened or fearful. But what I learned, especially in the workplace, is that if you stand up for yourself, then most of the time those bullies are just going to back down and go on and look for a weaker target. And I think that's important, and it served me well throughout my career. But you do it once, you're going to have to do it again. This is not a one and done like heroic acts of courage, which there's one burning building and they hopefully put the fire out. Everyday courage is continuous, and it can go over a long period of time as you face your fears.
The bullies I've encountered at work, most of them I can handle, but the one that still bothers me to this day is the bully that has a microphone. And being at working in radio, there's lots of microphones, and I've had instances where you have someone that's a celebrity that's like a prima donna, and they can say whatever they want on a mic, and you don't have a mic, so you can't say anything back. And I've had like remote broadcast, like something start to fail, and whether it was my fault or something else, there was no way for me to explain it. And then here the guy would get on the mic and be like, "Oh, damn engineers again," and start, just trashing us. It's like, man, I should just unplug you completely. But you see that in politics right now. And, some people think the president is like that. President Trump is, sometimes been known to be a little bit of a bully. And I'm not taking sides here or anything. I'm just stating that is a very unsettling circumstance.
Yeah. And, again, I think this is a great example of where you could apply everyday courage. Now, you said, that the on-air personalities, they have the mic. You don't necessarily have the mic if you're working behind the scenes.
Right.
And you disagree with what they're saying. Well,
and really,
is that really courage?
That's just my circumstance, John. That can happen in an office where you have someone that you might have a boss that is very one directional, one person that just doesn't listen and will over talk. If you try to speak up, they speak over you. So it could be a very similar situation.
Yeah, I think that there too in lies that choice as far as, is this something that you want to pursue and you want to stand up against? Just because you choose not to fight, that doesn't, sometimes you have to be strong enough to be weak and kind of walk away from those battles that you can't really win. And really, what's the point?
Well, think of like Clark Kent or as Superman or Peter Parker and as Spider-Man. They always, both of them were kind of wimpy kind of guys, and in a regular life things would happen and you would think, why don't you just tell them you're Spider-Man, or why don't you just do something? But they can't, because it's part of their secret identity. But it's the same thing at work. It might be not your secret identity, but it's your way to survive that situation.
And I think too, it also goes back to the plan that you would have in place for whatever you're trying to accomplish, and does taking action fit into that plan or does it not? And I think that's where everyday courage really does come in, because it makes you question yourself and your actions before you take them and then stick your foot in your mouth and regret it later. I mean, chances are you might do that anyway, but hopefully you learn from that, and you take that chance again. I think one of the I guess the last benefit that I wanted to talk about with everyday courage is it's one of my favorites, and I think it's my favorite because a lot of people don't consider it. We get caught up in the moment, and really the moment is all we have, because the past is in a figment of our mind. It's in the past. The future, that's also in our mind as well. All we have here is the moment. But we do need to plan for the future. And we also do need to learn from the past, so we're not repeating mistakes. What I think everyday courage offers is a way to help you reach your goals. It gives you a strategy at facing your fears and growing as a person as a result. Everyday courage, it doesn't work because I say it does or because Tom says it does. It works because it presents a way to approach life. How you decide to face your fears, how you decide to manage your fears is totally up to you. But it does contribute greatly to who you are as a person and to the person you can become through standing up to your fears and having courage.
Well said.
Really? I thought I kind of was jumping around at the end, and it didn't seem so smooth.
Well,
But thanks.
I give you,
No, I hope
I give you a
I
false
hope
compliment.
it's a really courage is very important to me. It's been, as I've think more and more about this, it's been a part of my life. Everyday courage has been a big part of my life and a big part of my success in life. And I hope if someone is listening to this episode and it really resonates with them, please, reach out to us. I'd love to hear how it's changed your life and how it's made your life better.
Cool. And don't forget to check us out at a swiftkickinatheass.com. Make sure that you sign up for our simple spending plan. Well, actually sign up for our membership site, which includes John's simple spending plan, which got him $90,000 out of debt and still continues to keep him out of debt to this day. Plus, you get self-help videos, different documents that we throw in there every once in a while, and it's an ongoing thing. We'll continue to add to it. It's free. You don't have to do anything but put it in your email. That's it. And I'm Tom. Thanks for listening.
And this is John. Till the next time. Peace.
See ya.